Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. We have an After Dark today. I'm just going to read you my notes for today. It says, call this episode After Dark 12-Step Yang Yang. At one point in the story, Tyler is homeless and on meth. I guess he has type 1 diabetes, but I'm not. And then there's an expletive in here. I don't know if we talked about it or not. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, Type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by AG1. Drink AG1.com/juicebox. When you use my link and place your first order, you're going to get a welcome kit, a year's supply of vitamin D, and 5 free travel packs. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G7 and G6 continuous glucose monitoring systems. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Today's show is sponsored by Omnipod 5. Do you have fear of missing out on Omnipod? If you do, you have FOMO, but I can get rid of it for you at omnipod.com/juicebox.
Hi, my name is Tyler. I've had diabetes for 17 years, and I was diagnosed when I was 18 months old.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I was diagnosed young, man. But my mom was a diabetic, so I got lucky there.
Hey, tell me something. Your mom was or she is?
She is. Sorry.
Oh no, I just thought maybe your mom had passed away. Okay.
No, she's not dead.
Your mom. I made you laugh. Your mom's a type 1. How old was she when she was diagnosed?
She was 20, so she was pretty later on, a lot later than me at least.
Yeah. Well, yeah, compared to you, we're all later on. Like I don't have diabetes and I'm still later on. You know what I mean? Like I might still get it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But that's something my daughter was 2 and I thought that was crazy.
Right.
Yeah,
well, cause when I first learned about this podcast, cause I'm like freshman in college age. I don't know how old your daughter is.
She's a sophomore. Now. She's halfway through her sophomore year in college. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So my mom started listening to your podcast when I was, pretty young, which she was the one who kind of turned me on to Juicebox. So
cool.
That was pretty cool.
So
yeah.
How about in the rest of your family? Other brothers and sisters? Anybody else with autoimmune stuff?
There's not really any. I come from a family where it's kind of like, oh, I broke my thumb, better get some electrical tape, So there's nothing that I've heard of that's really diagnosed.
Okay.
My grandpa deals with like some problems with his insulin immunity. So, there's definitely that part of it, but there's no other type 1 diabetics, no celiac. There's some thyroid issues though.
Yeah. How about you or your mom, thyroid?
Yeah. I've never been like diagnosed with thyroid issues, but I have trouble keeping off weight. I'm not like, huge or anything, but my mom has some pretty big thyroid issues as well as my dad.
Okay. Have you ever had your thyroid checked?
I don't think I have.
Do you have other thyroid symptoms besides weight?
That's kind of one of the only ones I've really noticed.
Anxiety, depression.
Yeah. And then, that's.
Oh, wait, you have that?
I do have, there's both things that I've dealt with in the past for sure. But I think that a big part of that just comes from different things that I've dealt with in my life as well. So it's kind of hard to tell.
Will we talk about those things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm open.
Your game. Tyler, I got to ask you,
yeah.
you're 18, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So look, first things first, you go to the doctor, just have them check your TSH.
Okay.
Or if they'll give you a full
Yeah.
thyroid panel, that'd be great. But if they won't, just have them do
Right.
your TSH. If your TSH is
Okay.
over 2, then say to them, hey, what if we tried medicating my thyroid and see if this helps me with my weight? It's that simple.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of thyroid issue thing is kind of just something that's come up a couple times in conversation.
Okay.
It's not something I've really thought about too much until literally right now.
Yeah, dude, it's one pill. You take it. You just pop this pill in the morning and you're on your way, and that's kind of it.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
And also other, again, like, do you ever sleep and not feel rested?
Oh, every day.
Oh, wait, are you tired all the time?
I am, but
Tyler,
I've spent the past.
No, listen to me. Your thyroid's messed up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, your dad's got it. Your mom's
all right.
got it. You have a lot of the symptoms. Go get the blood test. By the way, when we're done today, you go on the little portal to your doctor's office and you say, hey, I have a lot of hypothyroid symptoms. My mom and dad have hypothyroid symptoms. I need a blood test.
Yeah.
Send me a script. Go out, get the blood test. Start taking the pill. You might feel better in a week.
Really?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding.
Wow.
All right, good. All right, now that I've possibly fixed your whole life, let's talk about other stuff. So, what's it like never knowing a world without diabetes?
I guess I could turn that around. Like, what's it like knowing a world without diabetes?
Yeah, I know,
it's kind of my whole life.
But you're not interviewing me, Tyler. So I'm interviewing you. So
yeah. No, for sure. I mean,
if you want to start asking me questions, let me tell you something, man. I did an interview the other day. I don't go on other people's podcasts, but there's this girl, this young girl that comes on here sometimes. She's like 15. She's got this podcast. She's like, would you be on my podcast? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
She asked me a question. Like 20 minutes later, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to stop talking. So don't ask me questions or we're not going to hear your story. But you know what I mean? Like your entire life, you've got it. Your mom has it. Like you don't have even you can't think like, oh, back on my 6th birthday, I remember when I didn't have diabetes. Like you don't have any of that. So how does it impact you? Besides giving me my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, and more, AG1 has given me a morning routine, a healthy morning routine that I didn't have before. In a recent research study, AG1 was actually shown to double the amount of healthy bacteria in your gut. These healthy bacteria work together to break down food and are known to alleviate bloating, promote digestive regularity, and aid in digestive comfort long term. Hey, AG1 is made with bioavailable ingredients that actually work with your body. So start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It's a great first step to investing in your health, and that's why they've been a proud partner of mine for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/juicebox. That's a $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/juicebox. Check it out.
I'm grateful for the fact that I was diagnosed so young, simply because I just think there's a lot of things that I learned over my lifetime that, somebody who's diagnosed at, even 15, 16 would not have the ability to do. I've been editing my own basals since I was, 11 or 12.
Right.
Because that's just something I grew up doing, education about, the disease we have and all of that stuff was just a huge part of my life. And so I'm really appreciative of that.
So you have this perspective and you have this ability to take care of yourself that you think maybe doesn't come if you don't have this responsibility.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I was staying with one of my buddies recently and one of his roommates, she was diagnosed at 18.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in the harder parts of my life where I'm dealing with different things, diabetes, I mean, it's never a second thought, it's always something that, I'm conscious of, but it's definitely something that I don't have to put a ton of thought into controlling, and then, she made a comment like, oh, my A1C was like 10 because I was depressed, and I've thought about it, like even when I'm depressed, like
Mm-hmm.
I still have that ability to kind of just subconsciously, bolus when I'm high or,
I see what you're saying.
eat when I'm low.
So you think that it's such a part of who you are and how you have to be, and that because you've never had a moment without it, that even in tough times, you don't deviate from your management because it's just what you do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like making your bed, like if you never make your bed, you're not gonna,
Get up in the morning and think to do it. Yeah. Yeah. And
Exactly.
people who do it don't think, I'm going to make my bed before I get going. They just do it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. So that's how that strikes you. And that's valuable. You feel more responsible. You feel more capable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that definitely came into play when I started to get more into extreme sports as well.
Okay.
Like that's someplace that being diagnosed so early has helped me a lot.
Is that because you trust yourself?
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know, like yesterday I was skiing in the backcountry, and it's like, it wasn't even a second thought to stop and get some Starburst in case I go low,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or fill up my insulin the night before.
You're not, I don't know what the word is, but you're not frightful. You're not always worried about diabetes or anything like that.
Yeah, no. And sometimes that can be, a bit damaging, but.
Because why? Because you'll ignore things?
Exactly. Yeah. And not in a bad way necessarily. I mean, it can be in a bad way, but I think that sometimes when like things go wrong, it can just be a little bit stressful because, things don't go wrong very often.
Oh, I see. Oh, so when something gets out of whack, it's so much not the norm that you kind of don't know what to do. Do you not have enough practice at things being upside down?
It's like, I definitely have practice with things being upside down. Like sometimes I don't give as much attention to that as I probably should be.
Do you know why?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, might have to think about that one.
It's okay. I got time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Tyler, why this is interesting while you're thinking about it is because sometimes when you speak to younger people, they don't know why they feel the way they feel, or they don't know why they even think what they think. It's so emotional, and they haven't had enough time to reflect, to see themselves. Like, it's why those questions are really interesting, because you just like, I don't know. It's just how I am, and the truth is there's a reason. You're just not aware of it yet. So, it's that's why I find, like, you might not know the answer, and that's fine, but it's interesting to ask, like, why, when you get into that position, does that happen?
Right.
But you don't have a thought about it, do you really?
I'm trying to kind of come up with a thought.
You ever seen the Three Stooges?
Oh, Lord.
When Curly...
That's not what I like to hear.
No, when Curly says, I'm trying to think, but nothing's happening?
Yeah. Oh, man.
I know how that is. Don't worry. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's just because I'm just so used to everything. Like like you said, like, I don't know a life without diabetes.
Right.
That especially like, I don't know if it's the fact that I am almost like numbed out to situations like that, or if it's,
Is it? I know. I'm trying to think of, I don't want to put words in your mouth. And so I'm trying to like
appreciate words in my mouth right now.
No, that's funny. No. I wonder if it's so commonplace for you that when something is important, you can ignore it because it seems so blah, like average, like almost like your room getting dirty. Like you're like, you ever have that where your mom goes, Tyler, you got to pick your room up. You're like, yeah, I will. Like, you got it. And you'll go a week and you'll just be like, I will. And stuff starts piling up. and you think nothing of it. And then when you actually step back and look at it, you're like, oh my God, this is a hot fucking mess in here.
Yeah.
And how did I not notice that this week? It's because it's all around you, and it's something you're so accustomed to that you just don't think of it from another perspective. And I wonder if diabetes isn't that because you were diagnosed so young, you don't have any other perspective.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
No, that totally makes sense. When you said like other perspective, that kind of like, that's interesting. You know, I kind of have a thought about that. You know, it's like, I mean, I get that question very often, you know, of like, wow, well, how is it to have diabetes? You know, it's like, I don't have another perspective.
Right.
I'm pretty much just repeating what you said right now, but
yeah, you're like, I don't know.
Totally right.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're totally right in that. Yeah.
It would be like if somebody asked me like, what's Mars like? I'd be like, I mean, I can philosophize about it, but I don't have any perspective firsthand. That's so interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the human body isn't meant like that, you know, like there's a reason we can't well, I don't know if there's a reason, but I mean, it's kind of like imagining infinity,
right?
You know, like we can only understand it under, you know, different terms, you know, like, oh, it's forever, you know, but can the human mind really comprehend like what forever is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that somebody who has experienced forever probably could understand what forever is.
Yeah, no, I'm looking back now on your very first answer. Like, I don't know any different. It's funny. I tried to help you pick through it, but there's nothing for you to pick through. It's kind of wonderful, honestly. Like it seems freeing to me.
It is. Yeah. It is totally. Yeah. One thing I like that freeing kind of terminology because it's like one thing I do think of is it's like, I mean, somebody who's diagnosed later probably feels like they're stuck in a cage, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's
they've
just
been on the outside of the cage.
Exactly. And there's no way out. The lock is the lock is on the door, the key's in the trash.
Is that how it feels?
I mean, I'm sure that's how it would feel if, you know, to someone who's diagnosed later.
Yeah. Even that you'd have to wonder. Well, you ever talked to your mom about it? Because she was 20. That's 20 years without it.
You know, I don't think me and my mom have ever really had a conversation about diabetes in any way other than like, oh, you know, like I'm gonna adjust my basal to this, you know?
Why do you think you haven't?
I don't know. I honestly don't.
I think it makes her. Do you think it makes her uncomfortable? Or do you think it makes you uncomfortable?
I don't know if it's uncomfortable. I think it just hasn't really ever came up.
No.
To be honest, it might make me uncomfortable.
Do you and your mom have a good relationship?
We...
Go ahead. Maybe this is why it hasn't come up. Go ahead.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we do, you know. I don't know. I dealt with a lot of addiction, you know, and that definitely made us, you know, our relationship pretty rocky.
Tell me about that. Where did that start?
Yeah. So when I was 14, I think either 13 or 14, I went to a athletic boarding school. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty much just a frat.
Okay.
You know, like our dorms. And I kind of just found a lot of comfort in partying. And then it kind of just got worse and worse.
My daughter is 20 years old. I can't even believe it. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 2, and she put her first insulin pump on when she was 4. That insulin pump was an Omnipod, and it's been an Omnipod every day since then. That's 16 straight years of wearing Omnipod. It's been a friend to us, and I believe it could be a friend to you. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Whether you get the Omnipod DASH or the automation that's available with the Omnipod 5, you are going to enjoy tubeless insulin pumping. You're going to be able to jump into a shower or a pool or a bathtub without taking off your pump. That's right. You will not have to disconnect to bathe with an Omnipod. You also won't have to disconnect to play a sport or to do anything where a regular tube pump has to come off. Arden has been wearing an Omnipod for 16 years. She knows other people that wear different pumps, and she has never once asked the question, should I be trying a different pump? Never once. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Get a pump that you'll be happy with forever. The Dexcom G7 is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and it features a lightning fast 30-minute warm-up time. That's right. From the time you put on the Dexcom G7 till the time you're getting readings, 30 minutes. That's pretty great. It also has a 12-hour grace period, so you can swap your sensor when it's convenient for you. All of that on top of it being small, accurate, incredibly wearable, and light. These things, in my opinion, make the Dexcom G7 a no-brainer. The Dexcom G7 comes with way more than just this. Up to 10 people can follow you. You can use it with type 1, type 2, or gestational diabetes. It's covered by all sorts of insurances. And this might be the best part. It might be the best part. Alerts and alarms that are customizable so that you can be alerted at the levels that make sense to you. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Dexcom and all the sponsors. When you use my links, you're supporting the production of the podcast and helping to keep it free and plentiful. Okay. What were you, can you look back with some perspective and say what you were trying to escape with the partying?
Oh, 100%.
What was it you were trying to get away from?
I think there were just a couple of moments in my life that I never really got past,
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm past them now, but it was just, to me, it just felt great just to not feel anything.
Okay.
Because when you're high or when you're drunk, you just don't really, I don't know. It's almost like separating yourself from what's happening.
Sure. No, I understand what being high is, but what is it you were escaping?
My dad had a stroke when I was 14.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, it's all good. He's all right. He's not dead. It definitely changed our relationship a lot and made it, made my childhood a little bit interesting,
Tell me how it changed your relationship.
I think there were a lot of ways that he couldn't understand a lot of things that were going on. I don't mean that in the way that like he was a vegetable, who was just, not able to comprehend the world. But I don't know if he had, the skills to just be able to.
So he had some cognitive impairments?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. And has he overcome them or has he just learned to live with them?
It's actually, it's been a bit since I've really talked to him about it.
Uh-huh.
But from an outsider's perspective, I'd say that he tries his hardest. I feel like anger management was a big deal for both of us, when that first started, because I've always had a bit of a short temper. Mm-hmm. And then, with that.
He did. Did he have it before the stroke or just after?
He definitely did, but it was a lot worse after. And so we'd get in fights. We were just pitted against each other for a solid 2 years.
Tyler, can I ask you, do you have similar personalities?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
No, me and my dad are we're kind of like photocopies, and sometimes that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
If something's going on, we're both on the same playing field there. It's just like, oh yeah, let's do this. Yes.
So very similar reactions.
Oh, for sure.
So if you two are involved in a personal discussion that makes one of you angry, it's very likely going to make the other one angry too.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no yin to anybody's yang. Everybody's yang or everybody's yin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow, we could call your episode Yang Yang.
Yang Yang. That's an awesome name.
Thank you.
I like that.
It's part of my charm. I'm going to write that down. Yang Yang.
All right.
Okay, so you and Yang Yang are fighting all the time. It gets worse when he has a stroke because he probably doesn't have as many of the interpersonal skills and the desire to stop fighting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus you see him sick, which for a young kid is hard.
Yeah.
Right. And then you don't know how to process that feeling that, oh my God, my dad's not invincible. He could die. Then plus, but by the way, Tyler, after you have that thought, your brain goes, oh, I could die. Did you know that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So then sports boarding school, what sport did you play? Was it for skiing?
Yeah. So I was a competitive skier. And then while I was over there, I got into whitewater kayaking.
It's funny you said whitewater kayaking because I thought this is the whitest story I've ever heard in my life. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know anybody with a tan at that school, I would even imagine, right?
With a what?
There was not even anybody there with a tan at that school, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, no. It was mostly gingers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Kayaking, and whitewater kayaking. Yeah. Okay. So, all right.
Yeah.
Now, to paint a picture, not to make fun, I'm somewhere where there's some kids who are reasonably well off, grew up pretty comfortably. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And we all get together with our different problems. We all feel a little above it all because we're very good athletes. We're such good athletes that we get to go to a special school about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're on your own in dorms. Then one kid goes, I have weed. And then the next thing you know, you're doing heroin. Is that about how it went?
Yeah. And heroin was never my thing.
What did you do, Tyler? What was your stuff?
So I was a big alcoholic,
Okay.
And then from alcohol, I smoked a lot of weed. To this day, I'm not, 100% sure exactly what it was. I started to go into a little bit of almost a psychosis kind of state.
Yo, what were you doing? Like turbo bongs? Like what were you doing dabs? I'm being serious.
So,
were you how far were you going?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's kind of a prediction among my family that I was smoking spice, and I
Is that what you told them? Don't worry, we got it at the gas station. It's fine. So, you're laughing because you've said that before. Because you've lied and told somebody that before. It's Delta. What is it? Delta 8? Delta. What is that?
Yeah.
Fake weed?
No. I had a lot of friends who were not getting their drugs through very reliable sources.
Really? Surprising, but go ahead.
I'm going to laugh my way through this episode, man. But I was legit homeless at this point. This was a year after I left that boarding school because, my parents saw me going down a dark path. So I went to a public school, which was pretty interesting. I'd gone to public schools before, but not as someone who enjoys substances.
This is so interesting how this moves around. Give me a second. You go to that school when you're 14?
Yep.
How long did you make it before they kicked you out for drinking, I'm assuming?
No, I left.
You left on your own?
When I was 16.
All right, so you're there for 2 years. You gained a lot of knowledge about weed and booze while you were there. And then you went back to a public school and spread what you knew to your new friends.
Exactly, yeah. And they were meth heads at that point.
The kids in public school, the kids in public school are doing meth? Or the private school friends were up to meth?
Oh, no. Sorry, the public school friends were all meth heads.
So you were a piker, when you got back to school. Do you know the word piker? You don't know the word.
I
don't. Not a professional, an amateur.
I was an amateur.
Yeah. Your weed and alcohol looks like Sunday in the park to these people.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Now, Tyler, at that point, you say to yourself, "I don't want to be like them. I'm not going to smoke meth." Or you said,
"No, I joined
meth.
them and became homeless."
Wow! Holy Tyler, are you serious? And by the way, Tyler,
no, I was never a meth head.
Okay.
But one day I got an eighth of weed that smelled like straight Drano and decided to smoke it.
Fentanyl?
No, I don't think so. So spice is it's like a synthetic weed.
Okay.
But it's kind of turned to it's almost like wet now, what they were getting, which is essentially just embalming fluid.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
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 Everyone should be really just, my God. It's just the world's a terrible place, Tyler. They say I've got this weed, but if we mix it with Drano, I can sell more. That's a meth head thought right there, by the way. Okay.
Oh,
so
sure.
so you are in private school, I mean, your parents are probably fairly disappointed. You got kicked out of this thing where they were probably like, oh my God, my son's going to be the next whitewater kayaking champion of the world. Again, that's a white statement. And then you come.
Dane Jackson's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Okay. He's the one guy. I mean, it's not a thing to go after, Tyler. So you come home, they're disappointed. You're obviously disappointed. You feel caught a little bit. You double down. You meet these kids at school who are literally smoking meth. And then how long until after you're 16 are you out of the house?
It was like 2 months into my senior year.
Okay. So you made it at home for a year and a half or so. Yeah.
I left my junior year from, it's called CRMS school up here. I went to public school my senior year.
I'm sure they're thrilled for the shout out, by the way.
Oh no, I hate them.
Okay. So Jesus Christ, Tyler. Also, I'm realizing now this whole fucking story happened like a year ago. This is not like, are you clean right now?
Yeah. So I'm 8 months clean sober.
Oh, good for you, man.
Yeah. So I just got out of rehab.
Are you California sober or are you sober?
No, I have not touched a single thing.
Good for you.
Yeah, I went to a kava bar the other night for an open mic. Did not drink a single thing of kava.
You went to a bar last night, what, to test yourself?
No, it was like 2 weeks ago. Like the night I got out of rehab.
Tyler, listen to me. If I gave you a cell phone number, it's going to be a burner phone. Don't worry. But if I gave you a cell phone number, would you run all of your decisions by me first, and I could just yay or nay them real quickly? And you would. I think you need help with that. You got out of rehab and went to a bar?
Yeah. So my buddy was hosting an open mic night. It's called like a kava bar, so it's not like alcohol. And all my buddies were like, "Dude, you're gonna like go there and get super fucked up on kava?" And I was like, "No." And I didn't, Well,
Tyler, I'm proud of you for that. But could you make some friends that like read to kids at a library or something like that? I think that would be a better path for you.
Oh man.
So
no, I wish.
Do you think of yourself as an alcoholic or somebody who at a young age just drank way too much?
I think of myself as an alcoholic.
Okay.
I'm in the 12-step program.
Okay.
I go into meetings and I say, "Hi, I'm Ty. I'm an alcoholic." And that's a really important part just because, nobody starts out, nobody goes out as an alcoholic and just like the signs of alcoholism don't start when you're like 30, it's not like
you have an addictive personality to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I let that manifest for, a long time, not a long time, but couple of years, and then I decided to get my shit together, and it's kind of where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. So dude, help me with the timeline a little bit. You go to the private high school, you're there a couple of years, you come out, you're an alcoholic, you're smoking way too much weed, like what I said earlier. Like, I'm not kidding, right? Like you were like hitting heavy bongs, doing dabs, like you were off the deep end there. And you talk about a little bit of a psychosis. I don't know a ton about it, but I have heard people say weed is so safe for people unless you have a little something like a personality issue, like disorder or something like that. Then too much of it could really take you the wrong way and you could lose yourself. Do you feel like you were on your Do you feel like you were on your way to losing yourself and you stopped?
I think I lost myself, man.
You do.
Oh, yeah, 100%. By the way I know that is because I was not me. Mm-hmm. I was homeless it wasn't a ton of time, but by the time I came out of it, I was, I was suicidal, I wasn't like hearing voices, but I had no regulation of what I thought or what I was doing,
Kind of live like an insect. Like you wake up, you seek drugs, you sleep under a rock, like that kind of thing. Like it's just over and over, like over and over again, right? Like you're just in this very simple thing. What drug got you home? Like what got you kicked out of your house? Did you leave or did you get kicked out?
I left, which, looking back, that's kind of where it's hard for me to look back at that, because I just don't see me in that period of my life.
Yeah. If you would you now have counseled that kid to just ask for help, not to leave?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because like, all my meth head buddies were homeless. And so I was like, hey, I'll come, roam the streets with you guys. And so that's kind of how it went there.
How old were the guys in this very sad gang you were in? Like, are they all your age or were they older? Did it vary?
Yeah, they were all my age,
No kidding.
They were like juniors, seniors in high school.
Tyler, can you tell me, without being very specific, because I don't want to know what town you live in, but can you tell me like what part of the country you live in?
I'm in the mountains of Colorado.
Colorado. Okay. I got you. The weed is, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Yeah. There's that story of when weed got legal in Colorado, there was a big Fortune 500 company there and they had to leave. And and one of them, but like when like internal memos, like the one guy's like, look, I asked a package to be FedEx, and 3 days later, like my employees are like, yo, man, I'm getting to it. Don't worry. And
I've heard that before.
Yeah, the person was like, we couldn't do business because everybody was so fucking high. They weren't like they weren't there to work.
Oh yeah. So
but dude,
are you in a legalized state?
I am. I'm in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could drive 10 minutes from here in two different directions and buy weed like in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big part of it. Like at a certain point, I started selling weed, to high schoolers because it's 21 plus, and then I started, making fake IDs so that I could, help other people buy weed. So weed was like a huge part of my life.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur. I understand what you're saying. You're small.
I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's what you tell people. Say I was an entrepreneur for a while, small business owner, but I've moved on now. And
yeah.
So, but I gotta go back. Also, I lost your audio. You're a little dim all of a sudden, and I don't know why.
Sorry.
No,
that better?
But much better.
Awesome.
There was a group of guys your age, guys or guys and girls?
Guys and girls.
Your age, who were using meth and or somehow like strung out and literally homeless.
Yeah.
And how long did that last for you? And are some of them still out there?
Yeah. So, I was only on the streets for like a month before I broke down, and I was just like, screw this. Like, I'm done, Yeah. A lot of them are still out there.
I almost called you a quitter, Tyler, just trying to be funny. Actually, that's not what at first occurred to me. I know I'm like 30 years older than you. This is inappropriate, but at first you were like, I was only out there a month and I thought, pussy. But I'm glad. I'm glad. So you couldn't deal with it. You got away from it. How do you get out of it then?
The way I really got out of it was when I got arrested.
That'll slow you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it was just like, we had this like group chat, and like the day, they all thought I would turn, and like be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 and, like literally the day after I got arrested, like that group chat just like didn't exist anymore. And I was like, cool. Well, I've wanted to, I don't want to say get out of this life because it makes me sound like I was like a Crip, but, kind of get out of this life,
Tyler, listen, no matter how horrible your story is, you still sound like a white kid from Colorado. So you're never going to, you don't sound that tough. Trust me.
I don't try to sound tough.
No, it sounds like you fell off your surfboard and by mistake did some cocaine. But are your parents addicts?
No,
they're not.
No, I have a pretty strong, history of addiction on my dad's side, but my mom's side is, pretty clean cut.
Does your dad have addictive tendencies that come out different ways other than drugs?
That's a good question. Like through process addictions and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, look at you using your recovery words. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think that really interesting.
I'm not looking for you to out your dad. Just that simple, like yes or no. Like you don't have to give me a story about how he goes to hookers or something like that and likes to be dominated or something. Like I'm not looking for personal details. I'm sure also your father does not go to hookers and like to be dominated. But what I'm saying is like, do you see those tendencies in him that are coming out in different ways? And for you, it came out this way.
Oh man, I don't, you know?
Yeah. think it just skipped a generation almost.
I think that it skipped a generation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's kind of something that like we've looked over, like especially like when I was in recovery, I'm like, well, where does this come from? Because I mean, like I was in sober living. That's where I spent the past like 7 months.
Yeah.
And like all of these people, they're like, oh yeah, my dad was, a heroin addict, or like, oh yeah, my mom was she was strung out and she was a hooker, and I'm just like, oh, well, my dad's a compliance officer. So
I was going to be a whitewater rafter. It's only if volleyball didn't work out, or bocce. Yeah. Like, so, no.
Yeah, my professional spike ball tournament days are over.
Yeah. No. I play soccer. That's interesting. So my bigger point is, so when this happened to you, your parents really did not know how to, like, they didn't have the tools for this, right?
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
Okay.
And I think that was, like when I was earlier on in recovery, that put a huge block in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just like there were certain things that I knew that I couldn't talk to them about because they wouldn't understand.
Did you find yourself angry that they couldn't help you?
I think I definitely had a lot of resentment towards them. Whether it was, yeah, I think that a lot of resentment kind of built up over time.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's, not a good thing.
Yeah. And it's just because you're a little boy and you need help and your parents aren't helping you.
Exactly. And that's not because like, it's not like they neglected me. It's the fact that like, I mean, I'm a homeless drug addict, and, like they've never experienced that. It's almost like coming back to diabetes.
Yeah.
Some random guy who has a working pancreas, like, can't walk up to a diabetic and, explain to them, how their basal works,
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I it's interesting though that the anger, but you also understand it's unreasonable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's a huge part, because like addiction takes people and it makes them not them,
mm-hmm. Yeah. If you don't go to the private school, do you think you get caught up in it in public school anyway? Or do you think that being like trapped in those dorms with all that, just you didn't have a chance?
It's an interesting question. Never really thought about that. I think that it wouldn't really matter. Like I think that, like, I mean, there were definitely places where I kind of started, like, looking back on it, I can see addiction kind of starting to form even before I went to that school.
Okay.
Maybe
what it looks like is just different. Like maybe if you stay at the private institution, you're a closet drinker and a weed smoker and you've got all these problems, but it looks all clean cut still. And it gets shined up because you're at that school, and you're in a public situation where these kids maybe have fewer things to prop them up and help them, and it tumbles quicker. Plus if you look at the social aspects of what it takes to pay for somebody to be in a public school versus a private school, you probably weren't going to private school with a bunch of kids whose moms had to hook. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Right. So you kind of like, you shifted the social aspect. So no matter what, you were going to end up addicted to something and on a bad path, but the physical manifestation of it, public school to private school, changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And
okay.
I think that I don't think I would be where I am today if, I hadn't gone from, like private school kid to homeless, in a matter of a year.
Yeah. The bottoming out so quickly was probably, I can't believe I'm saying this, but probably good for you, because if you stay there, you're going to get propped up by the system forever. You're just going to turn into a 30-year-old drunk that's hitting somebody.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So those kids at those kids at those private school aren't any better off than you are. You just crashed faster than they are going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. No, I mean, I look back at like my friends from that school, and we're all on like Snapchat, and they post videos of them like binge drinking on a beach somewhere, because that's what they have the ability to do. And by the way, like I don't come from like a like poverty, but I'm not as well off. My family isn't as well off as most of those people, just because I got, huge financial aid and scholarship.
Yeah. My son once said to me at college, like, we're not uncomfortable and we're not wealthy. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm okay.
Yeah.
But my son once told me, my son once told me I am the poorest person here.
I was by far the poorest person at that school.
Yeah.
They had a scholarship program for like indigenous people. So I don't know if I was like the bottom of the barrel, but I didn't fit in with those people.
Close enough.
Like
right.
Not like, I don't want to name drop, so I'm not going to say anything other than like one of my classmates was the heir to a very well-known diamond company.
Oh.
And like I lived in the suburbs of Broomfield, Colorado. Like
wow. Yeah. And did you feel a pressure to kind of do what they were doing? Did they seem more advanced or fancy to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, like or one of my roommates, we did not get along just because that barrier was huge. He was from China, and his dad would literally send him thousands of dollars at a time just to do whatever he wants with it.
Really?
Yeah, like he didn't speak very good English, and he would literally like have me order him. There was this sushi place in town that served like a Wagyu steak with like gold on it. And it was like, I think it was like $150, like completely ridiculous, and he'd be like, order me this. Like, here's my dad's credit card.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's not healthy.
It's not.
Yeah. You're not going to be okay in that situation.
Yeah. And he ended up getting kicked out of school just because he didn't have those skills to really deal with real life. Like he would sit on his computer for hours on end, and so he got, they don't call it expelled there. They call it politely asked to leave the community. Yeah. Just because it's that type of school.
No one gets expelled here. That
Nobody gets
happen.
Expelled here.
Everyone
that
graduated.
Goes on your permanent record.
We have a 96% graduation rate. Don't worry. Of all the people who were reporting that graduated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. How about that? Problems like this, they can touch anybody.
Oh, for sure.
But how it manifests does sometimes have a lot to do with your social setting and your financial backing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
When I was growing up, kids at my school drank, and the kids at my cousin's school did coke, and they had more money. And that in the end, that's all it was. Yeah. Like my friends could afford beer, and his friends could afford drugs. Like that was all it was.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to say a little bit about my hometown, they did meth. So yeah. That's my town.
Yeah, Tyler's like, I'm just trying to say, I didn't have a whole bunch of money. But you were a hell of a kayaker / what else was it? What was the other thing?
Ski racer.
Oh my God. Do you still ski?
Oh yeah.
Competitively or for fun?
I don't ski competitively. I was on a team last year, but this year, I was in rehab, so I didn't really.
Yeah, it's hard to ski in rehab. Too much. Have you heard Chris Freeman on this podcast? He's been on a number of times. Chris is he's an Olympic cross country skier. He has type 1.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever caught one of those episodes. I'm gonna have to listen to it though.
He's a no bullshit guy. Like I like him. Like he's got the way about him, his attention to detail and excellence and stuff like that. Like there's no question in my mind how he ended up in the Olympics. Like
100%.
Yeah. It just made me think of that just now, that maybe you would like to hear that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Why the hell did you want to come on this podcast?
I don't know, Scott. That's a really good question. I heard the After Dark episodes.
Yeah, I think you qualify, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, dude.
Wow.
You think the nice ladies that listen are going to want to be blindsided by an 18-year-old homeless kid with like in a roaming gang of meth heads? It sounds like an episode of like The Walking Dead you're describing to me.
Oh man. Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask like this because I feel weird because you're younger, but was there a lot of unsafe sex in that month on the streets?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. I had 2 separate pregnancy scares in 2022.
You thought you were pregnant twice? I'm just kidding. Okay. Tyler, you got to tell him, like, not here, somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You can't let you can't let boys treat you like that, Tyler. No, but so with a homeless girl.
Yeah. No, I'm very surprised I don't have the clap.
No kidding. Did you get checked out when you got off the street?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even when I was on the street, like I would go to school every couple days, but I was like in the system. I think I had officially dropped out, but they had this clinic that I would go and get tested at in my school.
There's a VD clinic at your school?
Yeah.
Yo, I think when you get to that point, you have bigger problems. You need to start like looking into like, you know what it reminds me of? This girl came on one time. It's an After Dark, and she talked about like how important it is to test your drugs before you take them.
Oh yeah.
And I let her have that conversation because I thought, if somebody's in that situation, I would want them to test your drugs. But there was that other voice in my head that was going, hey, is this not a red flag for you? Like you know what I mean? You live in a world where you're constantly going, I wonder if this is going to kill me. And your answer isn't leave the world. It's I'll get a test. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. This is weird.
No, I mean, I know a lot of fentanyl addicts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of one of the misconceptions, is it's like, fentanyl is an incredibly deadly drug.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so is heroin. And there's a reason that people like heroin.
Yeah.
No.
Did you hear the After Dark with the with the girl who was an exotic dancer stripper, and she said her father like died from a fentanyl overdose like recently, like when she was recording it? Yeah.
It was a bit ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it was. Probably a month or two since I've heard that, but yeah.
Tyler, let me ask you a question that I know you're not going to like know the exact answer to, but every 100 kids in your public high school, how many of them are doing drugs out of every 100?
Oh, well, like define drugs.
Even that's a problem. That's like when I just said the other thing. Define drugs. How many people smoke weed now?
Oh, I'd say, well, like at my school, probably 75 to 80%.
They smoking to get high, or they smoking because they can't sleep? Or what do they say?
Most of them smoke to get high.
Okay.
So I grew up, well, I didn't grow up here, but, like I've spent, where the school was, where I went to public school is like an extremely, underprivileged community just because we're right near a huge, really rich, really famous ski town, and so it's all immigrants. And, I mean, I've met some of the best people I've ever met are immigrants, but there's also a really hard way of life. And there's a way to deal with that hard way of life, and drugs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So 75 to 80% of kids smoke weed. How many of them drink?
Oh, geez. I'd probably say 70%.
Okay. So weed's more popular than alcohol at this point. But when they drink to black 100%. Out?
I'd say like casually, probably like 50%. But like actual like hardcore drinkers, I'd probably say falls more into like 10%.
Okay. So cocaine, pretty easy to get at school?
It was. I don't think a lot of people were doing coke.
Okay. Are there kids doing heroin? I mean,
even my meth head buddies didn't screw around with heroin.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. But meth was big.
Meth.
All right.
Yeah. So meth is like the I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like the PBR of drugs.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Cheap and readily available. That kind of feeling.
Oh, exactly. It's right. Yeah. I mean, you can get an eighth of meth for, $50.
I I like that you think $50 isn't a lot of money. I'm over here. I'm so old. I'm like 50. Oh my God. $50.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can, an ounce of weed is 120. So
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, because you have to buy. You're not buying it legally though, right?
Well, when I was selling it, I'd buy it legally
and then resell it to underage people that couldn't get their hands on it.
Exactly. Right. So like,
that's good business.
If I was
model.
selling like an eighth, I could buy an eighth for probably $20 and I would sell it for 40 to 50.
Okay. You just keep doubling up your money.
Yeah, exactly.
You are an entrepreneur, Tyler. See?
I know. Yeah. I need to put that on my resume. Yeah. Drug dealer.
You say you're an investment counselor. That would be the way to put it, I think.
Yep.
Okay. Put a percentage on, not the ones you just knew, but the whole student body. What percentage of them using meth?
I think that
more or less than the blackout drinkers.
Oh, definitely less.
Less. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'd say that like 90% of the students that were doing like meth at my school were in my friend group, just because it's like, I mean, it's not really a thing that you're not going to a party and someone like pulls out a bag of meth.
And they're like, oh my God, it's finally Friday. I had such a tough day today with my testing. Thank God I have my meth.
Might as well stay up for 5 days.
Yeah. So it was, look at you laughing about it. So it was like a handful of people, fewer than 30?
There were probably 15.
Okay. That's still a lot of people in one high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah. For sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, at the school I went to, so my freshman year is like the COVID year. So I went to the boarding school.
Yeah.
I definitely say that Coke was a much bigger thing at my old school, just because it was it was like the future frat bros of America over at my old school.
Yeah. No, I know. They're all gonna work in finance one day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They're gonna have
math majors.
They're gonna have a bottle of gin on their desk. Mm-hmm. Their boss is gonna be screaming at them all day, and
that's the vibe.
But they can say that they went to an athletic boarding school, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know this story. Okay. All right. Did you manage your diabetes while you were homeless?
Yeah, that was another thing I think we haven't gone over yet. No. Yeah.
You're like, no, I was not. By the way, if you were, I would have been so confused by that. Like, no, Scott, I was having unsafe sex with homeless women and doing meth, but I was very careful to pre-bolus whenever we ate out of a dumpster. And so were you doing anything? Were you taking your basal? I'm sorry, I'm making you laugh about something so serious, but did you take your basal at least?
Yeah. So I have a TSL next too. And at that point, the kind of control IQ thing was in existence.
Yeah.
So I think control IQ definitely, played a big part in my A1C not being 15. I mean, it was tough. I kept like a box of supplies with me, and I had like 2 or 3 vials.
Of
so,
insulin.
It wasn't like, throwing away my insulin pump and smashing my insulin bottles, you didn't
want to die.
I didn't want to die.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to make a stupid joke about like, wow, Tandem can use that in their marketing. The official pump of roaming meth head teenagers everywhere. But instead, I take it very seriously that it sounds like it kind of like saved you when you weren't able to take care of yourself. At least you had that pump and that algorithm was running.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say that control IQ was just like a huge thing for me. I didn't see an endo for 5 or 6 months.
If only we could have got one of those endos hooked on meth, you probably could have seen them every day.
For sure.
That's all we needed.
Yeah, all he needs is a key to a pharmaceutical closet.
5 months didn't see an endo. 1 month didn't live at home. We're still bouncing in and out of school, which I found a little confusing, but not in and out of your house. Where did your parents think you were? And were they actively trying to get you back?
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the big things. I remember like I met with my parents like once while I was like homeless. Mm-hmm. It was kind of just to talk about like, hey, this kind of sucks. Like, can we repair this relationship a little bit? And I was drunk and probably high out of my mind, but they, which I think made him really sad. But it was definitely, pretty, it was hard on him,
Is that part of your 12 steps? Have you apologized to your mom, dad?
Yeah, it's step 9.
Okay.
Make a list of all persons you've harmed, make amends to them, except when to do so would cause personal injury to them or others.
Okay. And you've done that with everybody in your life already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I kind of went through in rehab, is just working through the steps, and it's kind of a joke, like, oh yeah, I go to the 12 steps, but it fucking works. Like, it works.
When you need something, you need something. And, I know some people bitch about it and some people love it, but it's helped a lot of people. So I can see the value in it. For sure. Yeah. Do you think you're so it's funny because you've told a story that has, like, you should be 48 years old. You know what I mean? But instead you're like, you're barely, are you in college right now?
My first semester is coming up.
Good for you. Hey, can you do something real, not some white kid thing like skiboarding or something like that? Like, actually, like, do something.
Health science major.
There you go. Thank you. I'm going to do philosophy, Scott, and figure out why. Like, oh God, no. That's okay. I'm going into politics. So, all right. So you got you're going to start college. My question was, can you, like, fast forward yourself, make yourself 60, and look back and think, like, this is all just going to be like a weird blip in my journey one day, like a story I'll tell people and they'll be like, God, really, Tyler? That's crazy. Or do you think, or are you very worried you'll backslide and that there's no chance you're going to escape this? Like, it feels to me like you're at the brim of a black hole in a science fiction movie, and we're not sure if your thrusters are enough to get you out of it or if you're going to get sucked back in. Like, but where do you think you are?
You're referring to, like, relapse?
Yeah. Like, do you think that's who you are, or do you think this is who you are?
I think that, it's definitely something that has crossed my mind, a couple times. That's kind of one of the things, is like addiction, like most people kind of like tend to kind of like walk lightly when it comes to things that, like, can ruin your life, like, oh, you don't, like, ask people about, like, if they're going to be able to pay their mortgage this month, but an addiction, it's like, that's something you talk about, it's like something that, like, you get out in the open so that you can deal with it.
Got to be ahead of it, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah. If I gave you $1 and I said, you got to bet, Tyler, are you going to be this Tyler moving forward, or are you going to be that Tyler moving forward one day? Like, do you know what side you'd bet on right now?
I'd put all the money I have to my name right now on the side that I'm going to be my true self.
Good for you. That's excellent. Well, I believe in you if you believe in you. That's for sure.
And I think that, I say that, because, if I'm in this mindset of it's just like, oh yeah, well, I'll probably relapse someday and be homeless again. And, this time I might get into fentanyl, It's like that's something that's on your mind. It's something that, you're thinking about and considering, because, like, to any normal person, they wouldn't be like, oh yeah, like, going and grabbing some fentanyl sounds really nice right now.
I don't, Tyler, I don't know, but I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Like, when people are like, and they're like, yeah, I know. Like, you just said, and I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't have that piece. Like, do you think about getting high and you have to actively work not to, or is it not a thing that's burdening you at the moment?
Oh, every day.
You do think about it
every day.
Okay.
Yeah. If somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh yeah, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic, but I never think about it, they're lying. Either that or they're not an alcoholic or an addict, simply because that's the difference between somebody who has never dealt with addiction and somebody who has is craving.
Okay.
Once you've had that,
it's almost like your body's wired for it then, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's like
you're like almost like eating sugar. Like your receptors are wide open for this sugar, and like
exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, that's a perfect example because like everybody in modern culture is like addicted to sugar.
Yeah, that's the thing you can understand. Or like coffee drinkers who like, you ever heard somebody's like, I can't get my day going without coffee. I'm like, oh my God, you're addicted to it. And like,
Exactly.
I just like it. Okay. So
I can stop anytime I want.
Yeah. Right after these 3 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke, I'll get right to it. So you like the caffeine?
Exactly. It's always the Diet Coke.
Yeah. Do you like the caffeine? Yep. No, I like the flavor. Okay. So, yeah. Why do I have such a headache? I haven't had a glass of soda in 3 minutes. Yeah. I hear you. Well, man, it's a lot. You have brothers or sisters or anybody close to you that can help you?
I'm an only child.
Are you really?
Yeah. I mean, I consider every single one of the guys that I went through recovery with, a brother.
Good. You feel like you have somebody to lean on if you need it?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just say, please don't go to a bar? Like, please.
I won't.
Thank you.
I won't.
I feel like that's not a good idea. Oh, like, so, I
agree.
Yeah. Boy, man, that's a hell of a story. You got a lot to say in a short time of being on this planet. That's really something. By the time I was 18, if you would have been like, tell me about yourself, I'd have been like, I like movies. I don't know what I want to do. Like, I'm not sure about what I want to do for work. I just graduated from high school. I'm trying to get this girl to go out with me. Like, that's about the most I could have said about my life when I was 18. Yeah, man, you've been through it. I wonder if you won't have the same experience with life that you had with diabetes. Like you experienced so much of it from such a young age that your perspective is just so much different than other people's. Because even talking to you, like Tyler, I don't know that this is lost on you or not, but you do sound like a background player from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But at the same time, you're really intelligent and thoughtful. And you know what I mean? And you have a ton of like perspective already about things that most people do not get to gain perspective about at this age, or if it ever,
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I remember there's this question one of my buddies asked. We were in like group, and he was basically just like, like if you could never be an addict, would you? And the answer was almost collectively no. Like I would stay in that. I would keep the experiences that I had, simply because, I mean, it's just like it's what makes you. It's like,
it's a defining gathering of information that if you gave it away, you'd feel like you were a neophyte, like an amateur at life.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So there's something like you, I was going to use a phrase I don't think but there's like this hard scrabbled nature to your existence that you wouldn't want to give away. Hard scrabble.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Is hard scrabbled is that a word anybody knows? Hold on. I don't even know if
it isn't.
I don't even know if I know how to define it. Hold on a second. I know what it means. People are like, now he's using phrases he can't define. Hard scrabble defined out as involving hard work and struggle. That's it.
Yeah.
I used it correctly. I just didn't know how to define it in a split second. Yes, you don't want to feel like you want to get high, but it would also be difficult to give away all this perspective that you've gained.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I know that I don't think I got a lot out of addiction,
Yeah.
I got a hell of a lot out of recovery, though.
Okay. It's how I feel about growing up broke, actually. Like, it would be easy to rub a genie's lamp and say, like, take me back. Don't make me flat broke. But then I don't know who I am then if I wasn't. Maybe I'm that kid off pretending I'm a championship kayaker getting blackout drunk because my dad sent me $1,000 for an expensive steak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. Nobody bought me a steak once. Never. No one was ever like, here, have a steak as I was growing up. No one ever said, here's $3. And because of that, I have a different experience and different perspective.
You want an Xbox? Can you pay for it?
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, you know how young you are that you said Xbox trying to make me feel like pick something a little older. Atari 2400, my friend. That's
you want an N64?
Oh, please. That was fancy when I grew up. I just wanted an Atari. That's all. I remember when the joystick and the Atari would break.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Tyler, real story. My grandmother bought an Atari because my parents couldn't afford it. She kept it at her house so we could play it while she was there, while we were at her house.
Right.
The joysticks, if people can picture them, this little square thing you held in your hand, had a red button on it, and this stick you move back and forth. They would break, and they were $8. And when they broke, we couldn't play the Atari anymore.
Oh, geez.
Because nobody had $8 to buy a different joystick.
Yeah, go mow some lawns.
Dude, 4 weeks of mowing lawns to replace the joystick. $2 to cut the grass. Do it again next week. Do it again the following week. Do it again the following week. All right, I'll give you a ride to the store to get the joystick. Not Amazon, by the way. Like, I had to drive somewhere. Right. Yeah. The whole world's completely different.
Mail was for like texts and stuff.
What was that? Say it again.
Mail was for like texts on paper.
Mail was text on paper. That's right. They called them letters, Tyler. Now paper is the thing you just roll your weed in. So what do you? Hey,
much.
I'm gonna ask you one final unfair question that there's no chance you have an answer to, and then I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah.
If we've covered everything you want to cover.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move you into the future. You're Tyler. Now you're married. You got a kid. You own a house. Like, your life went the way you expected it to. Your little Tylerette's on its way off to school. Are you immediately thinking that kid's gonna end up meeting somebody and doing meth?
You know what? I don't think I would be.
Tell me why.
Because, that's one thing I've definitely learned, gained some like personal wisdom on, is just the fact that, like, say Tylerette goes out and finds a meth chick,
right?
Like, and he's doing meth, what am I going to do to stop him?
Yeah. So the idea is what comes, and then we deal with it afterwards.
Exactly.
So you give him a good.
I've thought about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Please, I'm sorry. You give him
it's all good.
A good start, and you just hope for the best. You're not going to blindly just send them out in the world and say good luck, but you're going to do your best to prepare them and then see what happens. Yeah.
And just by the way, like, I don't know, like a child of my own, that comes from my DNA, simply because of the things that DNA contains.
Between diabetes and addiction?
Between diabetes and addiction and a love for adrenaline.
Oh, okay. Oh, that skiing thing wasn't by mistake.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all.
I see.
Not at all. Yeah,
right.
No, I've been begging my dad to go skydiving since I was 14.
Oh, like, let's do it. Yeah. So you said something a second ago that made me want to ask a question. I don't know how to ask it, but is there something about those meth girls? Are they exciting?
Yeah, I definitely had experiences with meth girls that I don't think I will ever have again, and I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. You think that's going to make? Do you think it's going to make regular life boring or difficult?
Regular life? No. I had a non-meth girl. She was more of like a, Xanax girl.
I thought you were going to say. Finally, I thought we were going to get to a girl who read to the kids at the library, but no, she was just more into pills.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was like my girlfriend right before I went into rehab, and I mean, there was definitely something missing. Like uppers make life more exciting for everybody around you.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting conversation. I could have this conversation for 20 hours. So I'm going to ask you if we've talked about everything you want to talk about and stop, because I'm going to keep asking you crazy questions and we got to get on with our lives.
Yeah. Not going to lie, man. I have a job interview at 3:30. So I would love to hop off. And that's in 30 minutes here.
No, let's go. What's your job interview? What are you trying to do?
Dude, just until I go to college, like, I'm not saying my dream job. This is going to sound so sad. I'm not saying my dream job is Domino's delivery driver, but like in this current moment, that's all I want to do.
Good for you.
So
that's great.
So I'm going to go.
Is this an online thing, or do you have to go down to the Domino's and meet them?
I got to go down to the Domino's.
Then get the fuck out of here. Go. Thank you. I appreciate you doing this very much. Go ahead and go.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. All right.
Tyler, this was really wonderful, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Dexcom G7, which now integrates with the Tandem T-Slim X2 system. Learn more and get started today at dexcom.com/juicebox. If you'd like to wear the same insulin pump that Arden does, all you have to do is go to omnipod.com/juicebox. That's it. Head over now and get started today, and you'll be wearing the same tubeless insulin pump that Arden has been wearing since she was 4 years old. I'd like to thank AG1 for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast and remind you that with your first order, you're going to get a free welcome kit, 5 free travel packs, and a year's supply of vitamin D. That's at ag1.com/juicebox. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, the After Dark collection from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From drugs to depression, self-harm, trauma, addiction, and so much more. Go to juiceboxpodcast.com, up in the menu, and click on After Dark. There you'll see a full list of all of the After Dark episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. If you're not already subscribed or following the podcast in your favorite audio app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do that now. Seriously, just to hit follow or subscribe will really help the show. If you go a little further in Apple Podcasts and set it up so that it downloads all new episodes, I'll be your best friend. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. wrongwayrecording.com.